I complained about the corruption, as a result of complaining about the corruption, I was expelled from the country. My visa was permanently canceled, and I was declared a threat to national security. Shortly thereafter, the police raided my offices in Moscow, and they took away all of our corporate documents. And we discovered a few months later that we no longer owned our corporation. It had been fraudulently re-registered out of our name into a convicted murderer who had been released from jail early to put his name on these documents. We hired 7 lawyers to represent us. They discovered that not only had our companies been stolen, but the people who stole our companies stole $230 million of taxes that we paid from the Russian government. We filed criminal complaints. Our lawyer was arrested. One of our lawyers was arrested. 6 of them fled the country. The one who was arrested was then tortured and killed in prison by the Interior Ministry. This is a worldwide story. The president of the country called for an investigation into the people who killed my lawyer. 1 year after the investigation, the people who killed the lawyer have been promoted and honored with state honors. Now, my question for you, Igor, is what's going to prevent all of these reputable companies, particularly Pepsi, who's just gone in, from having the same experience? And why should anybody, after my experience and after nothing has been done, consider investing in Russia?
First, I have to acknowledge that we have, both sides of the coin. We have people who are very successful and, earned a lot of money in Russia, and we have unsuccessful stories and people who lost, and unfortunately, as you just mentioned, some people died and so on and so forth. And we know this case very well. And you just mentioned promotion of the people who were involved. I'm not familiar with this, but I know that the reaction of my president was immediate when Mr. Magnitsky was found dead. That, around 20 people were fired immediately, and 20 people were under certain proceedings within the Ministry of Interior. So, it was not just, the case which everybody forgot next day. And the president was instructing, authorities himself. He was, he was very pushy. He wanted that this case should be as much transparent as possible. And unfortunately, I don't know the result, the end, whether the criminal proceedings are now finalized and the materials were transmitted to the court. I have no idea. But a year ago, it was very loud, and everybody believed that President Medvedev was personally involved, and he was involved in such a way in order to, to try to find the truth. But your question was about future, I think, not about the past. The past is very important, not always the happy past, but in future I think we need to concentrate on the positive trends we have now in my country and the trust to the people you work with. You have different people, of course, in Russia, and you have different, people involved in different bodies and agencies. But you have the president of the country, you have the prime minister who is the leader of United Russia, and you have the members of the Russian government and everybody who is here, including regional authorities. And we all want to change the country. As you know, we spoke about this. I cannot change, and even all of us, we cannot change the country overnight, but we can provide the change. If you ask the question, can you see the change? I think you have to acknowledge that the country is changing in a positive way. We have a lot of things we need to change, a lot of things we don't like, a lot of things we cannot adopt. We think it is something which is not for our future, but we need to provide change. This is my job. If every day and every year we can say we provided that for Russian people, we provided that for domestic and foreign investors, the situation is changing, rule of law is becoming better, not perfect, but better, then I think I'm doing my job. If not, if you think, and all of you who visited my country and know my country, because sometimes people argue about Russia not even visiting my country, but everybody who visited the country and who invested in the country, if you look back to 1999 or 1998 and the year of 2000 when Putin became the president, and now, and yesterday it was, I think, a very good speech made by President Medvedev. I think, it was a huge way we pursued, and we are very persistent to convert the country with all the difficulties in something new. We talked about the territory, human resources, and I believe that we are a unique country in any sense. The problem is we didn't convert all these unique things into a unique model. That's why we need to work all together with all the partners. We cannot do it ourselves. We need to create partnerships. We need to create partnerships with PepsiCo, Alstom, and other countries, and then we would be able to create something new. The problem for us now, the session is called Other Steps for Modernization, which is the immediate step to do this. And many of us believe, in order to achieve the further developing of modernization, we need to work out a new way how to make the role of state, including state property, not less effective, but in order to shrink it. Because we now understand it's too big. In order to go further, in order to develop country further on, we need to shrink the state ownership, and we need to learn how to manage things differently. Not only, I mean now, statecraft. Not. We need to learn how to manage corporations in a new way, municipalities, regionals, federal bodies. In order to do this, we will attract new people, new generations of managers, and so on and so forth. So we understand exactly what to do. We have a very precise agenda. We are very persistent. And in order to do this, we need just to work every day. But what you have said, first, I'm sorry, I regret. But in order to provide a better future, I think my answer would be we will need to work all together in a very close cooperation. Once we work and do the job in cooperation, we will avoid situations like you had.
Thanks for your question. Right here.
I'm Nikolai, head of Microsoft in Russia. So we're also very glad to doing a very good business in Russia, and we're also investing to the Skolkovo project, and we like both Skolkovo and Viktor Vekselberg, so that's very good. But even listening to this panel, I have the following conclusion, that companies who are deeply in Russia, they understand all benefits and are doing a really good business. And by the way, I mean, even comparing with China, everybody investing in China, but nobody is making real money. In Russia, less companies are investing, but everybody is feeling very good. But the problem is that transparency of overall situation and number of companies is still limited. So I would like to come back to this question of rebranding Russia and promoting Russia, because to be frank, there are a few exceptions, and the gentleman was having one of the few exceptions. There are a few really not good stories in Russia, but there are few. It's many positive stories. So how to rebrand it, how to promote it more, to make sure that all international community knows about Russia, understand that it's strong BRIC country to invest. I think that's our challenge and opportunity for Russia. So that's the question.
Tom, if I may just add to what you're saying, you asked a question earlier on what can Russia do to promote itself even more. And I think there's a little bit of a job to be done there, because companies like ours have been there for 50 years. We understand Russia very well. But I think in today's BRICS world, the CIVITS world, or whatever acronym you want to give to it, Russia's competing for capital. And I think people still look at Russia and say, demographics are working against Russia because your population is not growing rapidly. People look at it as a coal country. People do ask questions about corporate governance within Russia. So I think it might be useful for Russia to embark on some sort of a campaign which talks about the fact that don't focus just on the population in Russia, but it's a gateway to Central Europe, East Europe, and the CIS countries, and taken together, It's a big market of 400 million people with scale in Russia, which is incredibly positive. Second, on the corporate governance standards, if there can be some visible proof that stuff is changing, we see lots of positive movement. If it can be made much more visible, I think it will help Russia. And I think the FIAC, the Foreign Investment Advisory Council, that's chaired by Prime Minister Putin, is not a ceremonial committee. He comes to these meetings, he listens to what everybody has to say, and he actually goes off and acts on it. I think it's highly unusual for any country to have a Foreign Investment Advisory Council chaired by somebody as powerful as the Prime Minister. And I think publicizing some of those things will actually help Russia and help the world understand that Russia is open for business, understands that it's competing with the other BRICS, and really wants to make a difference. Change in developing and emerging markets does not happen overnight. We have to just recognize that and work with the countries.
Let's just get a few more questions. Please, right here.
Yeah, well, I work for Unilever. I work for Unilever, and we share some of the better experiences that people have spoken about. We have a great business in Russia. In fact, we not only have some of our Unilever brands there, but we acquired an ice cream business in Marco. I'm happy to say it's doing brilliantly. A lot of people eat a lot of ice cream, and that's good for us. We also acquired a local brand iconic brand of sauces, Baltimore. And our experience actually has been also that you can have a great business in Russia, great talent. We've got a lot of investment on the ground. We are a big contributor to the exchequer. I think it's less about transparency. It's more about simplification. One of the requests I have is that we need to simplify a lot of the administrative barriers and technical regulations, regulatory environment. There is a lot of that. And in fact, there is a lot of that that's at the center in some of the states and so on and so forth. And I know that there is now a working group of the Foreign Investment Advisory Council, where I'm happy to say that Unilever is very much part of that and leading that. My request would be that if foreign companies can play a more active role in terms of helping the industry regulatory environment, I think that will lead to, if you like, quote-unquote transparency. It is less about transparency, it's more about simplicity. That's number one. The second is the point about talent. I do believe that Russia has tremendous technological talent, but I think what it needs is business and management talent. And allowing free movement of people, easy access for people to come and work in Russia. And I'm now talking about mundane stuff, but important stuff. Being able to get quick work permits, to be able to go in and out of country, I think will also help build local talent. So these are the two comments I had.
Thank you. More questions, please. Well, why don't we, is there somebody back there? I'm sorry, I didn't see. Back in the back row, please.
Cameron Sinclair, Architecture for Humanity.
What? I didn't hear you. Where are you from?
My name is Cameron Sinclair. I'm from Architecture for Humanity. I actually want to touch on something that all of you have kind of brought up, but it is a bit of an elephant in the room, which was the fact of the shrinking population of Russia. You're having 700,000 people a year reduction over the next 20, 30 years. In the architectural field, many of the great architects are trained in Russia, but they leave. And, how does Russia keep its talent, but also grow its population? Because the issues are not in the next 5 years, but in the next 50 years. And how do we treat Russia differently with a much reduced population?
Okay, I think your conclusion is based on all data. Last year was a critical year for the population. Our population, became growing. And I have to admit that, it's not a very good situation with our population. But Russian families now have more and more kids. We launched the program 5 years ago, and both President Medvedev and Prime Minister Putin, they are very active, believing that, giving some subsidies and benefits to the families, including, free residence and some subsidies based on the monthly payments and so on could help people just have more kids, and including school education, kindergartens, because in Russian culture it's very important in order to let moms work very soon after delivery. So it's changing now. And I wouldn't say that we are in a perfect world and we have now 3 or 4 kids in each family. That's not the case. But now it's becoming more fashionable to have kids. I think it's like maybe 15-20 years ago in the United States, when you could see on the buses and everywhere get pregnant and so on and so forth. So it's not that obvious in my country because the culture is different. But now you can, while just traveling around the country in smaller cities and in the bigger cities, you see a lot of, fortunately, you see pregnant women. And you see a lot of women with babies and so on and so forth. So this is changing. And now we have not bad figures. Our death data is much better now than 5 years ago. Because of alcohol consumption, we had a lot of death every year. Many people were dead in the traffic accidents. So in all that aspect, we are working and we have better and better results. Even, maybe I'm wrong, but I think last year in traffic accidents, we got 50,000 people less dead than the previous year. So it's becoming better and better. Still, people don't want to fasten seatbelts. They drink sometimes, and we had to adopt new laws. Before we adopted European rules, letting people have some alcohol in the blood while driving. Now we cancelled it because we think it doesn't work. So it's changing. Slowly but changing, but how we keep the talent. Again, I think...
one thing, since we are coming to a close, why don't you just sum up whatever you'd like to say here at the close of the panel on this, with the issue of talent, and just generally what you've taken away from this session.
Okay, this issue again, talented people leaving the country and coming back. My personal belief, the more people leave the country for education, is very good for Russia, because the majority of them will return. The more people will leave the country for, seeking for better places where they can live and their family. It's very good because they will find better places where they can spend their lives. But we have many people who return to the country from science, biology, chemistry, and so on, who left the country, who immigrated even the country. They changed the citizenship, and they now return to Russia, and they want to work in Russia and stay in the country. And in order to finalize all of this, I heard today many positive things, and we attend many sessions in different formats. And what I can hear now, that the voices of positive are becoming stronger and stronger. That's good, but it doesn't help to change the image. That's the problem. We have stronger supporters of Russian modernization. We have stronger supporters for Russian investments. But still, if you turn off the TV screen somewhere in Great Britain or in the States, or you read the major papers, you read all awful stories about bad Russia, which is not true. I think what you get there is not about nowadays Russia, not about modern Russia. We need to correct this picture in order to reflect reality. I don't want to present the picture as a perfect world. We are not perfect, but we are not that bad. So trust us, we can deliver. Stay with us, and we will gain together.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming, and thanks to our panel. Thank you. Thanks very much. Very good job.